Now, we all are familiar with the Quad grouping, which shares a common objective of free and open Indo-Pacific. But now there is a new West Asian Quad that has been established. It is called the I2U2. It comprises 4 nations, that is India, Israel, the United States and the UAE. And the first summit of the new grouping of 4 nations will take place next month during US President Joe Biden's in-person visit to Israel. Biden will hold the virtual summit with India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi, Israel's Prime Minister Naftali Bennett, and UAE President Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan. The focus of the meeting will be on the food security crisis and other areas of cooperation across the hemisphere, especially where UAE and Israel serve as innovation hubs. The virtual meeting will also outline Israel's increasing integration into the region. In 2021, the 4 nations decided to launch this new grouping, sometimes referred to as the West Asian Quad. Its creation is seen as one of the key dividends of the Abraham Accords that saw the normalization of ties between Israel and the UAE. So far, the new grouping, called the I2U2, has met only at foreign minister level. The first meeting took place during Indian External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar's visit to Israel in October last year. And during that time, the foreign ministers of all 4 nations discussed key focus areas which were trade, climate and maritime security. They also explored possibility for joint infrastructure projects in transportation and technology. The summit-level meeting of West Asian Quad comes at a time when the Quad between the US, India, Japan and Australia has increased its engagement. Just last month, the Quad met for the second time in person in Tokyo. And for more details, our principal diplomatic correspondent Siddhant Sibbal has sent us this report from New Delhi. Take a look.
An idea whose time has come, it seems, I2U2, which is India, Israel, United States and UAE, also known as West Asian Quad. The first meeting, virtual summit, is going to take place during the visit of the American president to Israel. And we know that last year, the foreign ministers of all these 4 countries had a meeting during the Indian External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar's visit to Israel. And since then, of course, focus has been on how this grouping can work on various issues, especially when it comes to innovation. During this summit, key focus will be on the food security issue. And also, we know that there is another quad, that is the Indo-Pacific Quad, involving India, Australia, Japan and United States. They have had in-person summits in Washington and Tokyo, and also virtual meetings as well. But nonetheless, the development coming at a time when we know that there are increased worries, whether it is aggressive action by the Chinese in the Indo-Pacific, whether it is the Russian invasion of Ukraine, the supply chain crisis. So several issues, of course, have culminated to a new geopolitical landscape, and that is why emergence of new groupings, new Quad, and this meeting that is going to take place next month is a meeting that will show how these countries can work together on various issues. Remember, one of the key reasons of the emergence of the West Asian Quad is the Abraham Accords, the normalization of relationship between Israel and many West Asian countries. And UAE, of course, has been the standout in many senses. In fact, India, Israel and UAE have had trilateral pacts on issues, and we can expect more announcement when it comes to this grouping. With video journalist Siddhant Sibbal for WION in New Delhi.
WION World is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news updates on the move.